So yeah, we're quite excited really today, although it's quite informal. It's quite a milestone in terms of developing this Wigan-based work. Joe and I, 2 or 3 years ago, with Grace, ran an event funded by the deal. I mean, we'd have done it anyway. I think we'd started talking anyway, but the deal money oh no, it wasn't. It was MAC, so Manchester Alliance on Community Care, who were the precursor sort of looking after the CVS in Wigan for a period of time whilst you were evolving what Tracy's about to sort of present to people and tell you a bit more about, had some cash, and we did a leadership and development, women into leadership type day, and Grace was on the panel, and we had both of the people, didn't we, Joe? And it was our first foray into Wigan, and we knew there were lots of amazing social entrepreneurs, women leading social change in Wigan. It's, you know, this is nothing new. Wigan are at the forefront of a lot of this stuff. But we thought we could add some help and some value by supporting more women leading change to capacity build themselves and to connect. That seemed to be not what was missing, but part of what was missing. And anyway, long story short, between that day, some money from the Wigan deal to do some other scoping work, and the partnership that we have with Claire Hales and the team there at Merrick Street evolved into been managing to find some cash from the WEA to get this program together. So it's, the system does work, you know. I suppose that's one thing to say. We're really pleased that, you know, from 500 quid from MAC a while, you know, 2 or 3 years ago, things have evolved, some investments come into play. We've started to develop initiatives and things around Wigan, and more importantly, we found some amazing talent that was either there or that was evolving anyway, to you know, nurture, support and connect it. I'm just going to share this screen and we'll invite, let me just see if I've got this right. Joe, do you mind looking who's arriving in case anyone arrived?
Yeah, sure.
And I'll be handing over to you in a minute anyway. So just for the benefit,
could you make me co-host, please?
Absolutely.
Just make me co-host.
Yeah, will do. So when I say it's a bit of a milestone today, putting this slide together was a milestone. I get you know, pride. Small, you know, little things sort me out. So putting this slide together, I wasn't expecting it to look like this, if I'm honest. When I thought, oh, we better, you know, how do we spend an hour and a half showcasing some of the brilliant women-led social ventures that are developing or emerging in and around Wigan and around the edges, because we have got people from Tameside, Salford, and a couple of other areas as well on the call, other parts of Manchester and on the edges of Salford as well. But we were like, how do we showcase what's going on in the time we've got and give you a chance to connect? So in my, you know, rush the other day when I thought how we best to do this, I just thought, oh, we'll pull together a slide and hope for the best, see who's there. And when I've gone and looked, this, you know, I don't know, it'll be interesting to hear what Grace and Tracy and Dave, when he lands, makes of this. But, you know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people that we've found, a lot of people that we've kind of dragged in or brought in, and things are really starting to emerge. So I just kind of put that out there as some of the people on the programme. We've got, you know, probably another 5 or 10 people not on this slide who are at earlier stages of development and so on. We've just kind of pulled together bits of, you know, people's logos and what they're developing and so on. But I'm going to hand over to Joe in a moment to create a bit of a, you know, panel discussion, Q&A in here from our speakers. But we thought we'd perhaps ask our speakers if they might pick a logo, and if they're here, we'll ask the people who are behind that to sorry, and I've got to realise I've left Reiki Wellness on there, but I don't know whether Grace or Tracy want to make any observations or pick a logo, and if people are here, they can tell you a bit more about it.
That sounds fun. Yeah, a lot of these logos are new to me, so it'd be really interesting to learn about some of the other change makers who are in the borough. I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but Idaraya Life. So
that's Aisha too. Do you want to come and say hello?
Can you see me?
I can see you. Your Wi-Fi is a bit iffy, but fire away. Oh, I'm liking your hair.
Hello, everyone. everyone. So yes, it's called Idaraya Life.
We can hear you. You're all right. It's just
Hopefully this is much better.
there we go. Can we go on? Fire away.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go for it, Aishatu.
Right. Right. So are we literally just doing like a quick overview of,
Yeah, if you just,
of
it's
where
a
we're
bit of
at?
a,
Or
if you
what-
just, I would just say it's your 30-second elevator pitch, really, because we're just going to try and pick on a handful of people, and Grace has picked to hear about you. So do you want to just say a little bit about what you do?
Hi, so Idaraya Life is health coaching for people who have anxiety around physical activity. And that is it in a nutshell. And it's been born out of my love for physical activity and seeing how much people struggle to see the benefit and as well as integrate it into their lives. And there are a lot of very strict views as to what physical activity is and how keeping healthy is. And I really wanted to be able to support anyone to get involved and create their own personalized program without having to go through the effort of going to a personal trainer or joining an expensive gym, and be able to integrate it with their own lifestyles. That's the crux of it. Creating personalized programs for people to live the best versions of themselves that they can.
Thanks,
So
Aisha.
yeah, that is
now.
it.
That's awesome. And I think what we're trying to do is to give, we're asking Grace and Tracy and Dave as and when, if it gets in the hearing time, to pick a few people to share, and then anybody else who doesn't get a chance to do this, we'll make sure we take questions first from you guys, and you can absolutely say more about what you do through the course of the afternoon. So, Tracy, do you want to pick a square?
Yeah, I'll go for belting.
Belting. Far away, Vicky.
Hi, I'm Belton. It's just me. I'm a sole trader and I'm a journalist with some teaching experience, but I was furloughed last year. So I decided to set up a marketing agency, and I've got some experience in helping community groups with their marketing as well. So since then, I've worked with quite a few community interest companies and small businesses in Wigan and the surrounding area on things like social media, printing, leaflets and booklets, brochures, and a couple of websites as well. So that's me.
Thank you. And I know quite early on when we saw, your talents and what you were able to do, we quickly put you in touch with Yellow Jigsaw, and I hear that's had some positive results. Grace, what's going on there?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Vicky is officially a Yellow Jigsaw associate, and it's great to have her on the team.
Awesome. So yes, like I say, the system works. We try to, where we can, have the system work. So Grace, do you want to pick another square?
It's like a game show, this. Am I going to win something?
Wake us up after lunch.
The Northwest Autism and SEND Consultancy.
Now they're not here, but Emma Griffiths. That's right. Emma Griffiths is a kind of long-standing, what would you call it, practitioner and supporter of all this. She's got a teaching background and went into specialist services to support both children, families, and teachers, and the wider sort of health, social care and education sectors in better understanding the needs of people with autism and special educational needs. And we were really pleased when she came on the programme, because obviously Serenity Studios, that has now actually become, if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, Alison, but has now become Developing Matters. They've kind of rebranded. Obviously do quite, there's some synergy and some similarities there. So we're hoping over the course of the coming months and years that some collaborative work and different opportunities can evolve through that. So that's what they do. And that, yeah, there's a team there who do specialist consultancy services, specialist teacher training really, and other sort of professionals who need and are looking for support to develop their knowledge and skills around how to better design services and teaching and learning and other programs that supports people and families with autism and special educational needs. So that's them. Alison, I might come to you because I just picked on you there. Are you there, Alison? So no, you weren't here.
I was out making deliveries, so I'm just eating.
Oh, sorry, I picked up. I was just conscious that you made the time to come, so thank you. Some of you have met Alison before as part of Wigan workshops there, but was I correct that Serenity Studios has now become Developing Matters, or Claire's evolved her work?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so Developing Matters CIC. I don't know a great deal about what Claire does.
Right, you're ready. You've got better things to talk about than work. Fantastic. Do you want to just say a little bit about what you do? Because some people will know, but just in case people haven't picked up on that, do you want to just say a bit about what's happening at the workshop and what's happening at Merrick Street at the minute? Because obviously, as a partner, and there is a kind of challenge because we've not been able to physically get in and run sessions in there as much as we might have liked in the pandemic. It's certainly a longer term goal, and certainly this year there'll be some collaborative stuff going on. Do you want to just give us a quick overview of what you do and anything you want to promote that's going on there right now?
Yeah, so we're at Merrick Street. I had some of you on last night with the portrait drawing, so nice to see you again. What we're going to be doing is running different workshops at Merrick Street. So at the moment, with part of the same funding as this for the WEA, we did our first session last night online. So we did portrait drawing sessions, mainly aimed at women who are out of work. Obviously, we filled the spaces with other people as well, just for a small fee. We're just finding at the moment it's a bit more difficult with homeschooling and things like that. People have seemed to have, it's quite hard really. But at Merrick Street, we're opening up the workshop. So I'm here right now because I never stop working. So it's a bit of a mess at the minute, a big workshop, but we're having like new walls, having a disabled toilet put in and a new kitchen. So this is all sort of
What's going on?
Everything's
going on there
just
while you're fab?
a big
bit of a tour.
Yeah, a bit of a tour.
Well, we're definitely hoping to get back in there as soon as we can, Alison. And I'm just going to come to Tracy for another example, if I may. And I know Alison's here. You're here for the afternoon, aren't you? Which is great to sort of hear from the speakers, but also part of the conversations that we'll hopefully get into as well. So, Tracy, do you want to pick another square, and then I'll hand over to you?
Can I go for Remade Wigan?
Do you know they're not here either, but I'll tell you about them. You can pick another one. So Remade Wigan, you may actually know. So it's Alice from the Brick is looking at developing her own initiative and looking at this sort of recycling of different, using creative arts and recycling sort of principles. They're both developing.
Coming into here actually.
Yeah, go for it.
Here.
So that conversation's happened, has it, Alison? You've started to have a chat?
Yeah, she came to visit, so we did like a socially distanced visit, and she come and had a look at the space. So it's women who, again, out of work or have had sort of trouble in the past, but they're coming upcycling furniture. So they're going to come and rent our workshop space for a bit. They do need permanent space. They found all the places they're at, it's very male orientated. So they want somewhere that's just either women or, I said, when they're here, they'll have their assigned hours and no one else will be there.
Fantastic.
It's quite shared at the moment, so hopefully we'll get working with them quite soon.
Awesome. So yeah, another example of how the system works there, and even that was an update I'd not heard yet. So I think Dave, perfect timing, has just arrived. Are you there, Dave? Have you?
Yeah, sorry, but I've just been for my jab.
Oh, that's good news. Excellent. Well, all as you've missed is, and we're recording this so you can look back, but we've just started to introduce a few people. Unfortunately, there's not time to kind of go around everybody, but we thought we'd try and pick on a few people who we could. We pulled together a kind of summary of some of the people who are on the programme, and I was saying it was a bit of a milestone for us because we were tinkering with Wigan for a little while before the programme came off the ground in partnership with Merrick Street. And then I shocked myself really putting this slide together and realizing just how many, you know, women-led social ventures are emerging, a couple of which have been running for a little while. But in addition to the examples on the slide here, we've got another 5 or 10 as well who have not yet kind of got to the point where they've got their branding and all of that together. But what we've asked Tracy and Grace to do up to now, and I'll ask you, you can be our last one before I hand over to Joe for a proper chat, is do you want to pick a square? And we'll see if you pick one we've not had yet. I just wondered if there was anything jump out where you wanted to hear a bit more about them, or something you've not come across before.
The Idaraya Life CIC.
So we've just had a little bit earlier, Aishatu gave a bit of information already about what she's up to in terms of supporting people to live more healthy lives. It's a really interesting, exciting sort of BME-led organisation that's going to be doing all sorts of health and wellbeing stuff. And Aishat is actually joining us at our health and wellbeing event on this Friday, along with Anne. I might just, if I may, Anne, if you're there, I might pick on you as the Wigan Wellness Web. And there might quickly be time for Morag to say a very quick few words before Joe comes on. So I think then we've nearly covered the range. So if you're there, Anne, I don't know if she did have to nip off. Perfect. Do you want to just say super quick kind of who you are, what you're developing?
I'll look at the Wigan Wellness Web if you don't mind. It's
absolutely
in very early stages. Yeah, we're in the very early stages. We tried to set it up as it's a collaboration of wellness coaches, therapists who will look into offer the services to people who can't otherwise access them, either whether that's because of time or cost or whatever. So it's looking to work with other community groups to bring us in to offer these therapies to their service users, or host some sort of event to bring these services to other people who might not have thought of them as a way to improve their wellness. So we're looking, between us, we can offer Reiki, which is an energy therapy, reflexology, looking at mindfulness, looking at meditation, and how that can be brought into everyday situations. So for instance, going for a walk, we can introduce mindfulness into walking. We can introduce meditation into sitting doing a task, maybe knitting or something like that. And looking at how people can improve their own health, particularly now with a lot of stress and anxiety with the COVID and lockdowns and uncertainties, about how they can bring that into the everyday and help themselves more, and introducing them to it and looking at it is. I must say we have been stalled quite a lot because most of what we wanted to do would be face-to-face, and between us we're now looking at how we could possibly bring that in online therapies, or how we could get communities or groups together that we could explore how to use that in an online situation.
Absolutely, and I know we're keen to have you involved on Friday. You're doing a kind of tapping away stress and overwhelm session. We've got a busy day then, so thanks for doing that, Anne. I'm conscious out of these logos, we've only got 2 left that we've not talked about, and I feel bad if we don't flag them up. So I'll come to Morag quickly. I know you're not physically Wigan based, but you work all over sort of the area, so it'd be great if the guys aren't already aware to just hear about you, and then I'll come to Mickey quickly if you're there, and then we're full house, because I know All Ears aren't here and they do work around mental health awareness and suicide prevention. But Morag, do you want to say quickly what you do, what you offer?
Yeah, well, basically, I'm trying to work within the Northwest. I'm basically an accountant, and what I'm trying to do is make accountancy less of a mental stress barrier to folk. Now, whether that's a case of just trying to educate them a little bit about different things, what things mean, what words are used, you know, how to do things themselves. That's one side of it. The other side of it is I offer my own services to so that basically they can kind of like release the idea of having to spend all this time on records and books that really isn't what they've set themselves up to do. It gives them a chance to reduce the mental stress that they want, you know, and the worry, because they can leave it with me. It's getting done, etc. It's getting done right to deadlines, but also it saves them time, so they can do either more with their own actual objectives, whatever it is that they're wanting to do with their business, or they spend it with their family, etc. But it is very much about, I mean, I want to make a difference as well, and kind of like accountancy itself doesn't necessarily, well, I mean, I guess some rich people would say an account can make a big difference for them, but I'm not about the profit side. It's more about trying to help folk make a difference in the community, in the world,
That's great, Mark.
and know more about accountancy and feel better with it, or have someone that they can rely on, kind of like just give it to and forget about it kind of concept.
Brilliant. And I know you've been working with other Flourish members like Kim from Visit from the Stalk and Val from the Recruitment. So there's some good testimonials out there for what you're doing. Last but not least, I was just going to come to Mickey. And then I think we've covered everybody that I've managed to pop on this slide. And then I'll hand over to Joe and we'll hear from our speakers. I know Tracy's got to shoot off at 2, but we've got till 2:30 with Dave and Grace, I think, to be finding out more about what's going on in Wigan and thinking about any wider opportunities and collaborative thoughts. So Mickey, are you there to just say a little bit about the work that you're doing?
Yes, I am. So I'm Mickey and I work for Ekaya Empowerment CIC. And what we do mainly is we support women and children who have been disadvantaged by life events, and mainly is women from the BAME community. We don't like using BAME, but I guess that's the word that everybody understands at the moment. And in terms of supporting them, we've noticed that within Wigan itself, there's not much representation of the minority group. So we had a discussion earlier on with the ladies that if you needed a service, for example, if you needed stuff like domestic abuse services, if you turned up as a Black woman or as a BAME background woman, turned up there's no representation, that already is a barrier. And if not for that as a barrier, by the time you start speaking, somebody cannot pronounce your name, somebody can not pronounce your last name, or they don't understand the dialect that you're speaking in because maybe English is not your first language. So we're hoping that we can be a link between the minority group and the local organizations to be able to help the BAME, our members rather, to access the services that they might need.
Fantastic. And can I ask as well, obviously we've got another logo there, so you're spinning a few plates at the minute. Do you want to just say a bit about your Montessori childcare work?
So I'm also a registered childminder and a qualified Montessori practitioner. So with the childminding business, that's just the normal childminding childcare where I get people coming in. But how that ties in with the kick as well is that some of the women don't actually have families here. So if they needed to go to an appointment, especially now during COVID, they wouldn't necessarily have somebody to look after their children if they needed to go and get a jab, let's just say, for example. So Ekaya Montessori then provides that emergency childcare or provides that respite childcare for them to be able to do the necessities of life that me and you can possibly do without stressing. But because they've not got family, or most of us haven't got family here, then it becomes a speed bump for them. And the whole aim of it is to be able to partner with local organizations and council to be able to signpost our members to organizations that are more qualified, that are knowledgeable, because understandably we're not qualified in most things. So we're not trying to provide the services ourselves. We're more or less trying to be the link between the community that's not accessing the services and the organizations that are actually providing the services.
Fantastic, Mickey. Thank you. And I know we were very giddy when we found you, or I was, because yes, we banged our head against a wall trying to break into more ethnically diverse communities in and around Wigan, and it's not that they're not there. We're just, you know, it's I don't know what the census would tell you. The demographics might be slightly different in somewhere, you know, like Rochdale or wherever, but there's still a really thriving community there that we want to connect to and want to support. And so we're hopefully with Dave and Tracy and others becoming more aware of what you and Aishatu and others are doing. There's some really good opportunities there for change and for strengthening communities. So slightly over, only 5 minutes over what I thought we'd do. So thanks for sharing different examples there. And Joe, if I may, hand over to you to kick off our local panel really, and what we're going to be doing next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nicola. And I think that hopefully to Tracy and Dave and Grace, I hope you found that really helpful, knowing who's in the room and kind of what people are working on. Like Nicola said, we've unearthed an absolutely fantastic bunch of women that are doing great things, not just in Wigan but beyond. So it's been a pleasure working with everyone and hearing about the progress over the last several sessions. So I think really now, you know, we've kind of opened up our contact book. Nicola and I have both worked with Tracy, Dave and Grace in different capacity and on different projects, and I'm absolutely delighted that they're here to meet the group, because what Tracy, Dave and Grace have in common is that they're really nice people and are approachable, but B, they're big champions of the social enterprise sector, not just in Wigan but across Greater Manchester and beyond. So it's brilliant to have them here. I'm going to start with Tracy first because Tracy's got to leave at 2. So just really wanted to say thanks for coming, and also just if you could give a bit of an overview to the group, kind of who you are and kind of what you're involved in Wigan, and kind of how can people access support from you and your organisation, how can they connect? Is that all right?
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to meet everybody. I've been making notes as people were talking because there's so many things that people have mentioned already that really aligns with what we're looking on developing as well. So like Morag, when she was talking about helping with accountancy, we're looking for a finance course, so I'll be getting in touch with Morag. But there's loads of little bits where we can use social enterprises. And just to mention as well that social enterprises already started to talk about people that are in this room as well within the Wigan Borough. So Belting's already been mentioned by other social enterprises and recommending each other, and Claire Hales is a big advocate of that too. She's mentioning you all around different networks and things. So it is getting out there. This group is becoming quite something that is being mentioned and talked about in the borough.
Right.
But my role in particular, I work for Wigan Borough Community Partnership. So we're the local infrastructure organisation for the Wigan Borough. So we help all the voluntary community and social enterprises. Kind of our strands are advice, support and training. So basically we can help you with whatever it is that you need support with. So we have somebody who specialises in governance and startup support. So if you need any policies, procedures, advice on anything like that, you can get in touch with us. My role in particular is about funding. So I help to signpost groups to funding opportunities that are out there. We can do one-to-one meetings, so I can do specific advice and support. We have like lots of different resources that you can access, which I'll come to in a second. And then we have a new volunteer hub as well. So all the volunteers that are registered within Wigan come through our volunteer hub. So it's been massive over the COVID period, where I think we're hitting something like 400 volunteers on our database now. So it's gone really, really big during this pandemic. But for your purposes, if you do need any volunteers to help support your organisation, then you can register that on our website and we can help to signpost volunteers to you to help you out. But in terms of kind of the community partnership as a whole, the best way to get to us is through our website. So if you go onto our website, Google Wigan Borough Community Partnership, all our information is on there. If you become a member of the community partnership, it's free of charge. All we're asking really is for permission to keep contacting you in line with GDPR. But if you become a member, it allows you to access other resources that are on our website as well, and you get put onto our mailing list. So we'll be sending out mailing opportunities. So one that I've sent out this morning was an opportunity that's come through the North West Borough's healthcare for an opportunity to work with mental health support unit. So that might be, from what we've been talking about already, might be something of interest which I can forward on as well. In terms of the support we can offer, if you do get on the mailing list, I send out things like monthly funding bulletins, so you'll receive that. We send out all information regarding volunteer opportunities that are there, any news that's going on in the borough. So really, it's kind of a place where voluntary community groups can just come to one place, and whatever it is you need support with, we'll kind of provide that service. But if it's not something we can help you with directly, then we can signpost you to the best person that can help. So that's kind of the organisation as a whole.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, just pause there, I think, just to also talk about, obviously there's a number of people on the call that are looking to potentially work with a local authority as well. So just if you could just kind of give us an overview of your connection with the local authority and the local authority's view on social enterprise.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of connections with the local authority do have a Deal for Communities team. They're based in the different localities across the Wigan Borough. So I don't know if you've heard the phrase of service delivery footprint. So Wigan is split up into 7 SDF areas, and it's just based on the locality and tries to get everything quite small. Within those localities, each locality has an officer that looks after that particular locality. So if your social enterprise is based in a particular area of Wigan, if you get in touch with us, I can signpost you to the people you need to speak to. But there is an actual officer on the ground in that area that looks after all of the community voluntary groups. So if you're working in, say, for example, Lee, I can connect you with the officer for Lee, and then they can make sure you're well networked within that locality as well. If it's a bigger reach over the whole of the borough, then again, we can put you in touch with the relevant people there. But in terms of the local authorities' view of social enterprises, they're extremely supportive. I'll talk about the local access programme in a minute, Jo, but in terms of the involvement, they're very, very supportive of social enterprises. The communities team will help you, but also the business engagement team are starting to kind of put in some support as well and work very closely with us on that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
you can carry on and
Sorry.
then open up some questions. Yeah, I know you've got a lot to tell us, so.
I don't know where to start really, where it says other things that we do, because we get involved in so many different things. But one of the things we are involved in with Jo as well is the local access programme for the Wigan Borough. So this is a Greater Manchester project that works across Wigan, Oldham, Bolton and Stockport. It's about looking at the kind of support available for social enterprises through this kind of program, what we can do to kind of help them out. So we've been working with lots of different social enterprises in Wigan just to get some feedback on what it is in terms of if we were to put a support program in place, what would it look like? What is it you need help with? What's the experience like of social enterprises? So along with Dave, who's one of their partners, and Grace gets involved with our steering group as well, we're looking at how we can kind of put a development program in place. So the council are on board with this. A couple of hubs like the Old Courts and Lee Spinners Mill, so some of the incubation spaces that we have are all involved in a steering group that's looking at putting this program of development together. And it's at the moment it's still in the kind of the development phase of putting our development plan together, but it is working in the co-design with the social enterprise sector as well, which leads me on to the next bit. Is we do have a social enterprise network which has just started in the Wigan Borough. And that really is just a place where we get all of the social enterprises together. At the minute it's online, but we get everybody together in the same place, and we do just, it depends on what the social enterprises want to do to what the agenda says. It's led by the sector. So the next one though is on the 24th of February at 11 o'clock. I can send Nicola all the details and links for that if you want to come along and attend. Everybody's welcome. It's like a completely open forum just for people just to come along to. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, or you can get fully involved. We look for social enterprises to chair the meetings and to lead sections and things. So everybody's more than welcome to come along to that.
Obviously, Dave and Grace can probably build on that and say a bit more, because they'll be involved to different degrees. Awesome.
Thanks, Tracy.
Okay.
That's really helpful. Has anyone got any questions for Tracy before we move on to Dave?
And what I will say,
Question.
oh, go on. Go for it.
Sorry,
No,
I'm
no.
not even here to ask questions, but
Do it.
I'm taking liberties. Could you put your email address in the chat if that's all right? I don't think that I've signed up, so if other people are interested in signing up, that might be the easiest way to.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks, Grace.
And I was going to say, we have mentioned and we have shared the newsletter that gets produced at the Wigan do a kick-ass kind of funding bulletin and updates and emails on, I think it's on a monthly basis. You know, there's a lot of the CVSs around who do put these together, Action Together do a good one, Salford CVS do a good one, MAC do a good one, but certainly Wigan based, there's all sorts in there. So if you aren't signed up for it, it's worth being aware, because it's got training opportunities as well as funds and all the news that's relevant for you. Fab.
Thank you. Thanks, Tracy. She's popped her email in there. So
And
grab it while you can.
The conversation might roll on later, and I don't know whether they'll be here at that point, Tracy, but we're certainly keen to explore and be part of, you know, where we've obviously been building a programme. It's been, you know, we can share what we've learned and what we've been doing with different ventures here and what people's needs have been and what's still needed, as much as they can, the people that we've been working with can come and tell you directly themselves. And we're keen to be part of whatever it is you might want to do, if we can play a role in that for the, you know, for the foreseeable future, where there's a role for us in that.
Great, thank you. I'm going to introduce you to Dave now. Dave will give us a bit more of an overview of what he's involved in, and particularly around the Social Enterprise Place group. So Dave, over to you.
Cheers, Joe. Thanks, Nicola. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, so Abram Ward Cooperative, I'm sure most of you know where Abram Ward is, with Blackbridge, Bickershire, Banff, Springview and Abram, in the middle of the borough. It's a place where I'm born and bred, and I've been managing a community building there since 1999. And I used to work for the council, but I took voluntary redundancy to set up Abram Ward Cooperative in 2013. So the work we do is split into two. There's the place-based approach, like bottom-up growth of the social economy, so community businesses and social enterprise in a community neighbourhood area. And then the other part we do is very much the working alongside. I'm a trustee of the Wigan Borough Partnership that Tracy works for, so supporting that wider social enterprise growth strategy. From a place-based point of view, we were lucky to be funded via an organisation called Power to Change, who believe in locally rooted, accountable to the community businesses that have social impact but are sustainable away from funding. And they also see community businesses and social enterprise as we've seen, you know, as we know, as a great way of reducing inequalities. So they wanted to test out various pilots across the country, 6 pilots in the country. And we were lucky to be one of those 6 pilots, focusing on Abram Ward for 5 years, but then ultimately, how can we expand this model borough-wide? So it's very much place-based. I think Jill's on the call, I noticed, who's from Springfield, who we're talking with at the minute. So it's all about everything from community ownership of assets, to make sure we don't just lose buildings and assets in our community, plus open spaces. But these are places, we kind of call it what we want, a line of sight. You know, I'm lucky to be born in the community and have my only work doing this for 20 odd years. So it's about empowering local people to stay in Abram Ward, stay in the borough, and ultimately keep that wealth in the Wigan Borough. And I can talk about some of the council's work we're working with in a bit. It focuses on community organising, so speaking to local people, finding out what ideas they've got, and then ultimately empowering them to kind of say, you know, you don't need to rely on the council, and you guys have shown this today, that you've obviously got ideas, skills, talents that you're now turning into your own social enterprises. So that's kind of what we do. We're all about working cooperatively with other social enterprises and other community businesses. We work with, we support and seed fund and work with a number of groups. We have a group called Miss Places, which is a women's sheds group, but we've also got some community cafes, some sports clubs. We're looking at taking over a village club in our local community and turning that into an arts and culture hub, because there's not really much going on in the arts and culture scene. Certainly in the middle part of the borough, it's very much town centre focused. So that's very much what it's about. We do have this like seed fund program where we give out some small seed grants based around what's called participatory budgeting. So it's not about giving out funding based on an anonymous panel, but it's about getting the local community to decide what kind of groups that they want. So we know these groups are accountable to their local community. And then we kind of put them on a program that goes through enterprise coaching, links perfectly with what Tracy's saying. So Tracy and her colleagues are part of that wider SE journey. And obviously that fits into the piece of work that Tracy mentioned with local access. So that's the kind of work we do from a place-based point of view. And we're now expanding. It's with Companies House as we speak to turn into Wigan and Lee Community Cooperative. So how we can take this place-based approach into other communities. We also do what's called a neighbourhood plan as well, which is getting the local community to, it all fits into this, what's called the Localism Act. So getting local people to shape planning policies for the future, making sure we dictate the kind of housing, how our open spaces are used, and also how we can keep our assets into community ownership. So that's the kind of work we do. Do you want to carry on, Jo?
Yeah, that's great, Dave. And just that whole, Dave obviously just champions the voice of the people of the communities, and I think that's a really important role that you've been doing over many, many years. And I think, you know, it's so, Wigan's so lucky to have you to do that.
We learnt it all from yourselves, and like I suppose it's always great to say that we're cohorts of School of Social Entrepreneurs who kind of changed, certainly my life anyway. And I know a lot of the social enterprises in Wigan kind of changed. Was it around about 2010, I think, 11, when it really changed the whole movement? Yeah. So, and obviously the other work we do, which we started as being a bit of an incubation space for social enterprise, but as Tracy said, we've now got places like the Old Courts and certainly Lee Spinners who are really taking that to another level of incubation support. So we do a lot of focus around the backroom support. So some social enterprises, if they're struggling with needing her to turn to, especially with the business sector as well, because a lot of our social enterprises have the social side, but might not necessarily have the business side. So we've worked with groups in the past like Business in the Community, and even now as part of some of the work we're doing with the council, some of the wider business consortia, because a lot of those businesses have their corporate social responsibility and some money or some time that they want to give to this sector to help them grow. So we're trying to look at how that can develop. And as part of that, we felt that we needed to bring all the sectors together, not just the public sector, which, like Tracy said, with the deal's been really successful, but actually the business sector. So about a couple of years ago, we felt now was the best time for Wigan as a borough to apply to Social Enterprise Place status, which is a kite mark led by Social Enterprise UK. And up until recently, there was only Salford in Greater Manchester that's actually managed that kite mark. So working with likes of Grace, Tracy, Claire at Merrick Street, the wider sector, but also the council, the business sector, we put a bit of a focus groups and a bit of a steering group together. And we were lucky, I think it's about 6 or 7 weeks ago now, that we managed to get it approved. So Wigan is now an official social enterprise place. So the hope now is to start running more awareness raising activities, whether it's an annual business expo where groups like yourselves can come together, network, bit of peer support. But it also means, it's about opening more channels. So I'm lucky to lead on with the council on what's called community wealth building, which is a big new initiative, which is kind of the new incarnation of the deal, which is all about working with the CCG, the NHS, the police, the job centre, the business sector on how to keep wealth in Wigan, because as you all know, we lose a lot of our people to Wigan, to Manchester or Liverpool, or possibly even London or Birmingham, and we want that wealth to stay in Wigan so that people spend their money locally. And as we were saying before, like Joe was saying, we want local people to aspire to address those issues, because they are the best people who know what is needed in your communities. So the idea of this community wealth building now is to get everybody working together. So can we get better commission opportunities through the CCG, because I think 58% of our sector is health and social care led. Can we get better support from the business sector? So the hope is to have more community markets. I should have mentioned at this point that we've actually set up an initiative based around this called Made in Wigan. So Made in Wigan is all about, and I mean Lee as well, I don't want to upset the Lee side, so we do have to bring Lee in as well. We call it Made in Wigan because it is Abram War focused at the minute, and people in Abram are Wiganers, but we are looking at the Lee side as well. And it's all about basically saying that everybody who lives in the borough has at least one special something, whether it's, a skill or talent, a hobby, everyone has that skill or talent to turn that passion, that interest into, as you guys have all done, into a social enterprise. So we've tried to create some inspiration programs. So a colleague of mine is working with some secondary school students at the minute, but has also set up an enterprise awareness program for 18 plus. We've also got a e-commerce platform in design stage at the minute, and I know Tracy is obviously helping us to develop that. And we've also got a shop in the town centre. So if you come into the galleries in Wigan Town Centre, we have a Made in Wigan shop that Grace helped us launch. Was it 2019? I think now, Grace. It seems a long time ago. And that's a hub for people to come in. There's training room space there, but we want it to be there is actually a wall. So eventually, some of you already are actually on the wall. We have a massive wall on our training room of all the social enterprises in the borough. So hopefully we'll be able to put your logos on that wall, so that when people do come in from the council, from the local area, they can actually see this wealth of social enterprise and where they're located across the borough. So yeah, that's kind of where we're up
busy
to
man,
now.
Dave, you're a busy man.
Yeah, so I know I could talk more, but I'm conscious we're going to Grace.
Well, no, I mean, it was just key because I'm conscious that through the programme we've been running since, gosh, how long now? When did we start this? It was back last summer, really. We started outreach work last summer, and we officially started sort of September, October, and most of the people got a chance to meet, or half the programme got a chance to meet at Sunshine House just before we got re-locked up. And so, a lot of them have been on quite a journey, either from growing what they're already doing or really kick-starting something new. And I just think it's really exciting that we've got, timing is great for developing social ventures in Wigan, not least because of the three people that we managed to get here. So I would say do follow up absolutely with all of them, because they are the super connectors. But sorry, Joe, I jumped in there, but
no, it's fine. That's really great. And I think, is there any way in particular people can connect into the Made in Wigan, or to yourself, Dave, or when we go back to some kind of normality and the shops open, and ways to get involved?
Yeah, obviously I'll put my email address on in a second on the chat, but we are retweeting as we speak. Our main website is called madeinwigan.org. So we're looking at everything now. We make that bit more but there are some videos on there. So hopefully we'll be able to share some of the stories from this group on there. But we have a story of our what's called the Misplaces Women's Sheds group that's led by a lady who'd been visually impaired from birth, and she's got a really great story about how she set up her enterprise. So yeah, it's very much video case study led at minute, which hopefully will inspire other people, but you're already doing it already. So yeah, that's our main platform, which we're tweaking, but I'll put my email address on in shortly.
Lovely. Thank you, Dave. That was great. Fabulous. Well, I'll let Grace come in now and tell us a bit about your work in Wigan and beyond. Grace, over to you.
Sure. Would it be helpful to give a bit of a summary of Yellow Jigsaw and what we do and about? So we set up Yellow Jigsaw in 2014. It was myself and my colleague Kirsty Day. We met whilst working at Alzheimer's Society when we were working on regional campaigns to try and make communities more dementia friendly. And prior to working at Alzheimer's Society, Kirsty had been a reporter at the Manchester Evening News for 12 years. And we sort of hit it off straight away. We found that we had a shared values base and a shared way of working, particularly as, you know, Alzheimer's Society had some incredible stories to tell, but not always focusing on the person affected by dementia. Both myself and Kirsty believe that the most powerful stories are spoken and shared by the people with the lived experience. So we did all we could within Alzheimer's Society to make those people the ambassadors. They had a voice. They needed a bit of confidence, but they had the stories to share. So we decided to take that ethos out of Alzheimer's Society and set up Yellow Jigsaw. So we run campaigns, we support values-based organisations with their communications on a monthly basis or a fixed term basis, from anything from updating the website copy to social media management to actually getting them in the press and developing their skills to be able to do that themselves. That's our main sort of goal, to try and upskill our clients so that we become redundant, which perhaps is a bit of a questionable business model, but we feel it's the most sustainable way to work. So we have a client base across Greater Manchester of credit unions, housing associations, charities, values-led businesses, where we do that media support for them. But we also run a couple of projects which really do have at the heart of them that message that the best people to tell the stories are those with the lived experience. And at the moment, there's a huge imbalance between who creates the news and who consumes the news in this country. So, you know, 80% of leading journalists are privately educated, they're largely white and male, and that does not represent who makes the news and who's got the most interesting stories. So we support over 50s with the country's first over 50s led news platform called Talking About My Generation. So we've upskilled community reporters from across the region to share their stories and to challenge the stereotypes that are often associated with older people in the news. So think of the frail, wrinkly hands on the walking stick, and that stock image that seems to accompany any older person's story, unless you're Captain Tom Moore. He was the exception, really. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we work with primary school children, focusing on disadvantaged areas, and we host a pop-up TV studio and newsroom, and we give them the skills and the platform to become confident communicators. And obviously at the moment, that, which is called Media Cubs, is run online with free weekly sessions. So a range of projects. And since starting in 2014, I have been travelling around Greater Manchester, making connections and trying to feel that sense of belonging. And that's why you'll see I'm a trustee at Salford CVS. As David mentioned, Salford was the first social enterprise place in Greater Manchester. So I gravitated towards that area to build connections. And I think that is my sort of advice for any of you right now. This is a unique sector. The people that work in it are absolutely brilliant. They work with their heads and their hearts, and you'll meet somebody every day that will inspire you and motivate you and who you can work with. But finding those people isn't always easy, but it's just been made a whole lot easier now that Wigan has become a social enterprise place. And I saw that Tracy has included a link to the event that is happening on the 24th of February. And I've been wanting this sort of community of social enterprises in Wigan to have this identity for years, so that I don't have to travel across the border to Manchester or Salford or wherever it is to feel that sense of belonging and connection to other social enterprises. So I really do encourage all of you to come along to that meeting, because it's your meeting, this is your network. There are more and more social enterprises popping up in Wigan, thanks to Dave and thanks to Flourish and Tracy's work. But we need an identity, and we need a strength and a collective voice, and that network is where we get it. Thanks to connections with social enterprises and Flourish largely over the last 6 years, we have been able to grow our business. We've been able to learn from other social entrepreneurs. And like I say, it can be a bit of a lonely journey sometimes. And I've got a co-founder, and I'm saying that. So to have that sense of belonging is really important. So the success of this social enterprise network in Wigan is down to us making the most of it. It was a bit of a rant, but
an inspiring rant.
Yeah, no, that was great. I think you're right. It's about time, isn't it, that not just kind of central Manchester or Salford kind of get all the accolades for social action and social justice and that kind of community-led businesses. It's happening everywhere, and particularly Wigan. So it's really good that Wigan's now got the status of social enterprise place, which is just going to give everyone on this call a platform to get in front of people that may be potential customers, commissioners, collaborators, funders. So it's a really exciting time for Wigan, and I think if you're creating an organisation that's got social outcomes in Wigan right now, then now is the time. It's brilliant, and thanks to the three of you for sort of leading the change on that and advocating on the sector's behalf. I think yes, sign up to the event on the 24th. It sounds very exciting. That was great. I'm just wondering if anybody, well, we've got the kind of minds and contacts that Dave's got and Grace has got and Tracy's got, whether anybody has got any questions. I'm just wondering whether you want to just take that slide down, Nicola, so we can see
what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely time for various questions, random, specific or otherwise. Yeah. And it'd be great to have a think. I know by the sounds of it, Tracy and Dave and potentially Grace as well, with all of the strategic stuff that's going on and the new developments that are going on. If there's ways that we can think around, what we would like to see, or what some of the collaborative opportunities we'd like to see emerge, it might be helpful to discuss when we get to that point. But it'd be good if anyone's got any key questions. I know I've got one on behalf of somebody else, but who couldn't get here today. But any burning questions or anything come to mind, or anything you've...
I have, if you don't mind. Dave, thanks for answering my question in the chat. I think I've been chomping at the bit because there seems like there's so much going on, but it's like, how do I get involved in it, and what would be relevant to get involved in at the start. And both Tracy and Dave have come up with so much, and you, Grace, about this social enterprises. There's so much going on that all seems to have been sort of either below or above my radar. So I saw that you sent a link through in the chat there as well to link in with one of the Eventbrites. So I'm going to do that. But otherwise, is there anything that we can do to just start our journey? Because it seems, there's so much going on. It's like, do I go to everything? Do I try? How do I cherry pick where I would be best to contribute and where I would get the most from? So where could we go to try and find out what's relevant and what's impactful for us?
Can I just answer that one?
Thanks,
and this is part of our issue with, especially that it's been identified from the social enterprises. Where do I go to? So part of the local access programme, we have highlighted that we need a person, like a one-stop shop person that you could go to and say, this is what we do. Where do we need to go for support, to connect, to meet new people? And that's kind of what the sector has identified that they need. So we are working on that at the minute. But in the meantime, if you want to come to us or to Dave and have a chat, we'll make sure you're connected into the right people and the right places. for the kind of the time being while we get all that sorted.
Yeah, Tracy, is the hub open in Wigan? Because that was ideal for dropping in, but I mean, I'd assumed you'd be closed now. You're not able to take anybody in, and it'd be phone calls, or is it still open?
Everything's shut down at the minute just because of obviously with COVID and lockdown. But I'll drop my phone number in as well into the chat box as well if you want to give us a call, and we can just have a chat about what it is that you're doing and who we can connect you to and things like that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks very much, Tracy.
Thanks, Anne.
How I going?
Mickey?
Yeah. So I just wanted to just take the opportunity to say thank you guys for actually turning up today. For us personally, I think this is a starting point in terms of trying to get working with local organizations that are already there within the community and dealing with them. And for me, for Ekhaya Empowerment rather, the one thing that we struggle with, I was going to say the same thing that Anne said, but is how to work closely with organizations so that we can provide an excellent service for our members. And it's really important for me to know that there's people like you, Dave, Grace, Tracy, that's there that I can just email you and say, do you know what, this is who I am, this is where I'm struggling, or this is where I'd like to go. How can I bring my service to the community, or how can you link me with people in your organizations that might possibly benefit from what we're doing. So I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you, and this is really, really helpful for us as an organization.
Yeah, so I think as well, if you were to come to us and kind of give us some more information about what it is that you do particularly, we can make sure you connect, because obviously we have the connections with different, like you mentioned, about different services support, so like the domestic violence charities, with some of the other organisations. So we've got kind of the connections through our members that if you needed support to link you in with somebody that you were helping, then we could provide that connections facility as well.
We are looking at the minute, I know it's part of a bigger conversation at GM and national level about, do we need like a social enterprise directory? How do we raise that awareness? So hopefully now we've got the SC Place kite mark, we know we've got the buy-in from the council and some of these other anchors like the CCG and the NHS. Obviously, like saying an expo maybe once a year, and this is why it's great. We've got the enterprise network now, that there's a forum there every month to get these kind of ideas, really, because it's what everybody in the community wants, what you guys want, to kind of tell us, these are the kind of events we need. Do we need an e-commerce platform? Is it more of a directory? I had a talk with a business organisation, private sector the other day. Do we need like a bit of a, there's probably some links that these private sector organisations have that can help you, whether it's, we were lucky to work, we have like a men's sheds group and women's sheds groups. And there was an organisation called Connolly's, which is a local maintenance company. And the lady there was amazing in terms of the support she provided in terms of product planning and costing and sustainability. So there's a whole wealth of business sector out there that we need to tap into and learn from. So it's, do we need some kind of directory that enables us to be like the partnership? We've got like a volunteer directory where we're here to look for volunteers. Do we need to have something where we can just say to the business sector, we have X, Y, and Z that we need. Can you come and can you speak to the business sector? And they're aware of this sector, but they know about the Wigan Youth Zone, they know about the Brick, they know about some of the bigger long-standing social enterprises, but they don't realise that there's 241 plus social enterprises. So it's getting them to be aware that supporting a social enterprise doesn't mean just funding those amazing charities like the Brick and Wigan Youth Zone, but it's supporting likes of yourselves. So
I was just going to nip in there, Dave, off of the back of what you were saying there. So Joe, Dave, Grace and I, amongst others, have been trying to shape and support and influence some of this stuff across Greater Manchester in our weird and wonderful ways. And a kind of practical operational group is a kind of social enterprise network. There's not heaps that it does, and through COVID it's been tricky, but there've been some online events, and there's the directory which we've kept hold of, and we've been trying to improve and get more people on in the short term, while some of the boroughs or the wider sort of strategic group, this sort of social enterprise advisory group to the mayor and others, looks at the bigger picture. So we have encouraged people on the group here to, if you have got a service and you're a social enterprise or you're providing services too, looking at getting on that, because it is free, and once people are on there, we can push it more. At least we've mapped that for cross sector work and wider work. And I was just going to say thank you to Mickey for thanking our panel, because you're right there, you know, everyone's really busy, but people have been involved in this from the off, and it's great to have them back. But also a big part of what we do, not least being practitioners, to kind of run the training sessions, try and design events that meet people's needs and connect people up to opportunities, is trying to link some of those sort of strategic dots. And so we hope that by being able to give people on the programme access to different layers of where they might get support, things start to gel and stick, because everybody's at quite different stages. But absolutely make the most of the connections that are out there. And what I would say is, we've asked the guys to come on the panel today rather than right at the beginning, because you know, disagree with me or not, but I think, you know, 6 months on, certainly some of those organisations that were evolving, when you're approaching people like Dave or Tracy or others now, what your offer looks like, or how you're communicating it, or what you could do for them or with them or for the wider community tomorrow, is more shaped and ready to go. And don't get me wrong, there were still people on our programme who were trialling and piloting, and I would say don't be afraid to go and talk to people like Dave and Tracy and Grace about what you're doing, because we're the kinds of people that are trying to give people, you know, that sort of active faith, if you will, or, you know, or we're certainly trying to, you know, create opportunities so that those social enterprises can grow, that are perhaps smaller than, like Dave says, the larger ones. So I'd got a quick question, and there might be others. I don't know if people answer. Tracy is probably the person for it, but it was just something for Dave for sure. So we've got people on our programme who are developing ventures, and to plug into you or to Tracy or to speak to their peers at networks is one thing, but we've got quite a few people who are looking for work in this sector, or they're looking for work, purposeful work. They've perhaps had a career before, or they've taken a career break or whatever. Quite a few of our Time to Grow programmes have this kind of 80-20 split, if you will, of 80% developing ventures and 20% also looking at their job options. And often social entrepreneurs have to work alongside their, you know, their venture development to kind of make ends meet for the first year or two or whatever. And I just wonder whether where people might be best to look for social enterprise job opportunities in the borough, or whether there's, as part of the local action stuff, or community wealth building, or other developments, whether there's anything to think about or do around career pathways in the voluntary community sector, because it's something we want to champion, but we've not got the full expertise of it, and we've not had the time and the capacity to do that in quite the way we might like. So I'll throw that one out there as a, you know, it's a great sector to work in. We you know, it's flexible. People earn more than people think they do in this sector, and you know, there's no reason why more people, whether they're graduates fresh out of, you know, school or later in life, coming into this space. And I just wonder, given the climate that we're in, and given the furloughs and the job cuts and everything else, I'm just curious to say, where would you suggest people look for jobs in this VCSE or social enterprise world? And is there more to think about or do around career development and pathways here?
It's a good question. I mean, I know when we started doing the Made in Wigan program a few years ago, we looked at those three things of, you know, say to people, it's about A, set up a social enterprise, B, buy from a social enterprise, so a bit of a buy local brand, and C, how do you get involved in joining a community business as a volunteer staff member So I know we started looking at it maybe from the other end, where we started looking at like what kind of products do we want to start selling in the shop. So we've tried, because obviously this has all been about reducing inequality. So we, you know, if you take, say, some of the craft and the pottery activities or products that our Misplaces Women's Sheds group make, we provided the sales platform. And then we've started to say, if you start reverse engineering those products, it enables the opportunity then for individuals to come along, and maybe through voluntary opportunities or paid opportunities in the future, then individuals, we've got some individuals who have like disabilities, and they might be like, you know what, I don't know if I can work, but it's like, actually there's part of that product making journey that you can get involved in. We're even trying to do that with our main building now at Platt Bridge, about, do people want office spaces anymore like we've got? So do we turn some office space into more make space, innovation labs? And I know that's a conversation we're having with one of our colleagues, Anwar, on the Social Enterprise group in Oldham, and George, who does a lot of that stuff in Manchester. So again, that these places can be places where individuals can come along, work for a community business or social enterprise, like the Misplaces Women's Sheds group, or men's sheds, or community cafes, for example, and there's many more out there. And you know, and ultimately be part of that kind of workforce making stuff. It's difficult, you know, at the minute, because most of the social enterprises are sole trader led. So I mean, I've always said with a lot of these social enterprises that if they could have stretched their budget to employ more people, then that's what they need. I mean, yourselves, I mean, having, you know, yourself and Joe and a team of people there, same as obviously Grace has got with her, with Kirsty and that, and a lot of our groups that we have are sadly one sole trader partners who heavily rely on volunteers coming in, where it's sitting as directors helping out, but that's not seeing the business side of our sector develop. So there's definitely something around, if we can get that line of sight of the products and the services that our groups can provide, then it will start creating more employment opportunities. I know we're talking to the council a minute about the Kickstart project, creating opportunities for young people around. So, but it is difficult. I mean, I was lucky that we got funding off the council, which meant I could employ other staff members, but I was very lucky in the early days that happened. And not everybody's as lucky as us to go out and get
no, it was just luck, Dave. That sounds like that's another workshop for us to come and quiz you.
Well, it was to do with the council. I mean, we know obviously that a lot of funders struggle to fund salary posts, and it becomes a lot of sessional fees. So yeah, there was a bit of an element of how do we restructure funding if you apply for an awards for all, how you make it sound more sessionally fee look, rather than making the funder think it's an actual salary. But it is difficult, but certainly I know for us, we'd love to see that ability to start employing more people. I mean, my dad, for example, he's retired now, but he works for the cafe. He's retired, and that's been his lifeline during lockdown, that he can go in. He gets involved by being part of the food growing. They have a food growing garden at a cafe, so he kind of works for them in a voluntary capacity. And not only does it help him contribute, you know, and it also helps his obviously health and well-being. But yeah, there's a lot of those opportunities out there, but they're very, very voluntary focused at the minute. But I think eventually we need these community business social enterprises to have bigger workforce. I mean, we've used the home-baked cooperative idea in Liverpool as a really good model of how this brings in the community, but also the ability to employ
Great jobs as well.
A good number of staff. So
I might just sorry, I'm hogging it.
Okay.
Come to Grace, and then I'll hand back to Joe and we'll see if there's any questions. But Grace, I just want from your point of view, because I know you sort of observe across Wigan, there's obviously Salford CVS, there's GMSEN and other things. Any thoughts on where people are best to look for voluntary community sector, either jobs or opportunities?
Well, you're starting off in a great place here with Flourish, I would say that. To follow on from Anne's question about where to look, it is going to be quite specific to each of you, I would say. And I think I started out trying lots of different networking groups and business groups, to try and find my tribe, if you like, and where I most belonged. And it was here in Flourish and, all these networks across Greater Manchester that we've mentioned. I think trying stuff out is a really important process, because you're going to be meeting new people who you've got to explain your social enterprise to, and based on their feedback you will be able to adapt, and you'll actually understand what it is that's resonating with people. So I think that's an important rite of passage to not try and avoid or cut out. But I think
I was just going to say, through the programme, just to remind people on that, if they need to sort of dip backwards, there's been sessions around, social innovation and ideation. There's been sessions on personas, so who are these people that you're selling stuff to really think that through carefully. Joe ran a great session on that. Business model canvas stuff we've covered, looking more at the kind of building blocks of the different facets of what you're doing, and right through to things like today, where we've looked at social value measurement and really peeled out who are the beneficiaries and customers and stakeholders, and how you work out exactly what you're doing with them. So it's all a moving journey, isn't it? But sorry, Grace, what were you going to say about?
I don't know what I was going to say, but I do want to say,
yeah, what do you want to say?
In terms of networks, obviously you get your Flourish updates, which is plenty of events where you can be taking advantage of building connections and speaking to people. There's the GM Social Enterprise Network that Nicola has mentioned. They have a newsletter where they tell you about events that are happening and funding opportunities. Salford CVS, although it's specific to Salford, they also share information on funding and GM-wide events. So go to Google Salford CVS, or I could just put all the links in the chat, and I also find it useful to have national updates, both on understanding sort of national opportunities and other organisations in other parts of the country that I could perhaps learn from and just have a quick chat with. So make sure you're signed up to Social Enterprise UK's update, and the School of Social Entrepreneur do a weekly newsletter, which is really, really good. It's got job opportunities on there, it's got volunteering, training, as well as sort of just industry news that you should be aware of. So I'll put all those links in the chat.
I know in our Facebook group, I do share quite a lot of roles. I mean, a lot of the people here are running their own businesses, or they're in jobs and various other things, but in, where you have to kind of scale back one job to do what you're doing, or you've got people around you looking for alternative work or more interesting work. I'm just always keen to kind of share some of that stuff, and sorry for hugging that, but I'm conscious we had people who weren't here who want to know the answer to that question. And in our Facebook group, we share quite a lot of jobs, and there's a lady called Servan Moazan who I share this kind of Impact Women jobs roundup that she does every week. That's really, really good as well. Sorry, Joe, hugged in there.
No, it's great. No, I'm just wondering if there's any more questions for our.
I've got like I don't know if it's more of a question, just more of a like general like just thinking while we've been chatting, but like especially with the like keeping the talent in Wigan type of thing, it's like that intergenerational, especially with everything going on at the minute with like increased like people being off work and having time and stuff like that, and also like the regeneration side. It's like, is there like, rather than a full-blown apprenticeship, it's like skill sharing, things like the plastering and proper trades things, but not full on, because I know a lot of apprenticeships have been cut from last year and things like that. It's just because there just wasn't the opportunity to do the work side of it. It's like a bit of a catch-up type thing. Is there opportunity for things like that in Wigan at the minute? And like I said, that skill sharing, like the older people teaching the younger people, and keep it having that place attachment, I suppose, really.
It's just mapping out the existing social enterprises or voluntary community sector organisations that have got that as part of their remit or skill to do, or designing projects and programs to do that. I know through Flourish, when we first ran this Time to Grow program, we were really hoping to have a full proper 2-track program where we got the entrepreneur side and the career pathway side, and we got all these grand ideas for, because we've got such a massive network of social ventures, and they're often looking for extra hands, or they're looking for volunteers, or they could certainly take someone on to shadow or be part of their organisation for a little, placements and things. I think our sector's got a massive, we've got a massive opportunity for that sort of thing. It just takes quite a bit of brokerage and quite a bit of planning, and whilst Flourish can do that in its own small way, looking at that and a bigger footprint would be better. And as you just described, we hit some barriers whereby either people aren't used to remote working quite yet, or some of them weren't. So reshaping work placements for remote working's fiddly, or places have just shut their doors sometimes and it's not been possible. So there's definitely a catch up on what you described there. I don't know whether Grace or Jo, because she's obviously looking at this in Stockport, whether you've got any observations on where that's kind of working or could work. Nope. Just me with the brain going constantly.
I think it's a great idea, absolutely. I think, tend to do the matching through the volunteering hub in terms of Skillshare in Stockport, but I don't know if there's anything specific to Wigan around that. Dave?
There was a couple of years ago, and it's still operational, which I know Tracy not here to sadly, but the other what's called the community book. So there's something called Wigan Community Book, and the idea around that was obviously it started off very much social prescribing led, where you could put your organisation, your social enterprise up onto the community book, and then obviously it connected. So if any local people, Tracy referred before to what's called the service delivery footprints, which are like your council officers out and about, out and about in the community. And if anybody kind of had a skill or an interest that they felt would get them out of social isolation, then they could ultimately social prescribe to it. And they did start actually opening a bit of a volunteer need to, again, if you've got like, again, using the example of my dad before, for example, that here's a guy who enjoyed growing fruit and veg, and how does he contribute something wider? So he luckily heard through myself about the cafe. So, I'll get involved in that. And then a few weeks later, he's suddenly a co-director of it. And then same as with the women's sheds group we have, there's, ladies that are coming along who once they've had that social care and feel like they're out of isolation and feel empowered, they'll start to kind of say, I fancy learning how to cook or learn how to make pottery or make stuff. We are trying to make sure that the like I said before, with the product side of it, I mean, there's some great groups out there like Verklempt or Driven that focus around transport food, who are always looking for people who are drivers, who are chefs, and it's and I know that, they've probably just used some of the wider connection in the local community. But Community Book was a good opportunity that came along. But I say I'm not sure it is at the minute, because it kind of was a bit clunky, hard to use, because it was very social prescribed led. It was difficult to kind of get somebody approving it, because understandably safeguarding and everything else came into it. So I don't know if that's still the future for the sector, possibly not, but it's the closest we've had so far. So
Right, thank you, Dave. Hope that helped, Jenny. I think we're kind of coming up to time, aren't we? So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch upon, Nicola, before we close, but
we're not due to close in about 3, believe it or not, because we've got to talk about the mentorathon. So we've got a little bit longer yet for those that can, and it'll get recorded.
Oh, right.
I've just been throwing links to add to those that are there into the chat. Grace mentioned Social Enterprise UK, which is put in there. I put in Social Enterprise Mark. Not for everybody. They do have some useful stuff. They have a useful newsletter. They run some useful events. They're a kind of an accreditation, whether you love or loathe that kind of stuff. And they're trying to create a kind of kite mark around social enterprise. They've got some good people working in there, and they've certainly got some good social enterprises linked to what they do. And then I've just put in a Facebook group there. There's a woman called Kat Lecoq, who I've linked some of you to, consultant a bit like us. She's doing we've got a number of events for International Women's Week I'll talk about in a bit, but she's doing one of those, and she runs this group, the Impact Entrepreneurs Club. It's slightly more profit for purpose thinking than, you know, community development or voluntary community sector thinking, but it's another take. There's a really good group of both national and international people on her group that are an interesting and active bunch. So I throw them in there. By all means, come off mute and ask any final questions of our speakers. Otherwise, we might let you go and have a breather. Thank you for letting us quiz you, and thank you for telling us all about the different facets to what you do. And as I say, I've said it, Joe said it, I've said it, we've all said it. Try and keep in contact with these guys. Go to some of these either virtual and when they happen real world networking things, either in Wigan and there's others around other boroughs that we can signpost people to, and connect with people, because they're working both at a community level, at a funding level, and at a kind of strategic level, and it's just worth thinking about that and making those links. Lovely. Cool.
I think we have said as well, haven't we, Nicola, that I know Claire is planning it, so whether it'll be next month or maybe the April Social Enterprise Network, I think we were keen to get this group on the agenda in some way, sharing it. I know Claire said she's planning to, basically we try and share it every month with a different group. It's not seen as the same groups. Yeah. So this one's very much focused in the next few weeks on the culture side of it. So Lee Film Society, we've got a group called Happy Smiles that's sharing it. And I know Claire Hale said she is keen to act as chair on one, maybe do, and hopefully maybe through that bring this group into as a key agenda item, but obviously feel free to join at any time. So
I'll call her. I've not got hold of her lately because she's doing a PhD now at Chill, amongst many other things. And homeschooling, yes, and the list is endless. We're kind of email buddies more than anything else. I mean, email and WEA reporting buddies. But I'll get to catch up with her in the next few weeks, and we'll encourage that for sure. And we're keen to see what's what. And my ears pricked up, Dave, when you talked about community seed funding. So I will come and talk to you more about that, to learn more about the options there for some of the people here and how we signpost them across. Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thanks ever so much for taking in interest all the way along and still being interested and hearing from our fab groups of people that working in and around Wigan and beyond. I'm just going to screen share this and just flash up so you don't forget before you leave who's here and who to remember, who to watch, ones to watch over the coming year. And oh God, I can't do this. There we go. That's what I wanted. So yes, thank you, Grace, Dave, and we'll follow up with Tracy. She's had to leg it, but I'm going to just spend it. We don't need half an hour. Don't panic. We will finish early, but we wanted to make sure we've got the time to let people know about the mentorathon. So where are we? Here we go. So mentorathon. I mentioned earlier, for anyone that didn't hear it, we've pushed back the final day to the 31st of March. And when I say final day, Flourish is still here. The programme's not going to drop off a cliff. And there's other events and opportunities and things that will roll on. And we'll be working with Claire at Serenity Studios and others there, and the likes of Dave and Tracy and whoever we can get to keep looking at how we collaborate and evolve what we're doing. The main goal on the 31st is to run our mentorathon, and I just saw something in the chat. I don't know if it was a burning question, Joe. I couldn't read it, it was flashing at me, but if there's a burning question, we can go for it.
Grace saying goodbye.
Oh, fab, that's all right then. Cool. So mentorathon, what on earth is it? So we've successfully ran this mentorathon for 5 or 6 years now, and it's one of our signature annual. It was an annual event, and now it's a kind of biannual event where we're running a couple this year. We've tacked it into, normally we just run one a year in the summer, and that's that, but it's a really great opportunity, and we've tucked it into the Time to Grow programs to make sure that after we've been through this personal development and kind of personal reflection stuff, we've gone and we've looked at kind of enterprise and its kind of elements, and we've tried to connect you with some different places in the wider world, that we then keep doing that and keep you talking and keep others interested and feeding in. And we do that at the end of March again through the mentorathon. So rather than this full day in March, we're running it 1 till 5 in the afternoon. I'll explain more about that in a second, but and not everybody will need to be there for the whole afternoon, but I'll explain. So ultimately, it's an opportunity for you to troubleshoot a challenge or get a take on where you're at currently. And I know we've been looking at that all along, but in the next few weeks, it would be good for you to have a think about, if you were to come to a supportive sounding board where it might be me or Joe or somebody else will be chairing a kind of facilitated conversation with perhaps a couple of you from the programme might be in this sounding board, and then a couple of external people who might be funders, or they might work in marketing, or they might be running their own social ventures. Because we've run so many of these in the network we've got women who we're calling on to get involved. There might be strategic people, there might be business development people. We create a cocktail of brains, is the best way I can describe it, that is there to listen to where you're at, what you're doing, and we have a particular method, a way of having a conversation for about 45 minutes that helps you reaffirm some of what you're already thinking. It helps you kind of reflect and look at getting different perspectives on a particular challenge or a couple of challenges, and then making new networks and contacts. So whilst we've been having these kinds of conversations to a degree very quickly through the programme, this is 45 minutes just about you, looking at whatever's key for you right now, personally, professionally, with your venture and so on. So be thinking about if there was a challenge you wanted to bring to the table and have a supportive group of people think about that with you, what might that be? It is also, we do have, as it says, I think you can see, we've got a little bit of cash that we've ring fenced to one side. It's not oodles, unfortunately, but we're hoping to give out a number of small grants from whatever, 150 to £200 or £300, depending on what people need and what is best use of that cash. And like Dave described, there's a bit of a participatory budgeting feel where we think about who would make best use of some cash for what. And at this stage, it might be cash that might cover a bit of equipment, or cover your Zoom subscription for the next few months, or pay for your accounts, or buy somebody in to do some bid writing for a bit, or go on a training course, or cover some marketing, whatever. And as long as it's legal, we're not like normal funders. It's not an awful lot of money, but it can be spent on pretty much anything, so long as it's developing you or developing your venture to progress with what you're doing. And we can't fund everybody, unfortunately, but we'll certainly have a listen to where people are at, what they're needing some support and a cash injection for. And it might be that with what you describe, there's some other solution, or there's another way we can think around it. So while some of you might get physical cash, some of you might get some other form of support that fills that gap or that need. So that's what the purpose of this is for. The mentors, or the people that we bring in to get involved, get to network and meet with other people, and they get to see different problem solving styles. I know we've touched on action learning and we've touched on some of this stuff, but we all need time and space to see things from different people's perspectives. So point being, the people who come on as mentors, whether some of you come as a mentee and a mentor to that afternoon and you pitch your own challenge and get some support, and you might stay to listen and get involved in some other troubleshooting sessions, the other people coming along also gain from the events, both by meeting and hearing from different social ventures and being inspired by what you do, but also it makes them think as well about their own situations. So I don't expect you to remember all this. It's just, if you think, what the hell is this? What will it be like? It's not a dragon's den by any means, but it's a way that potentially a bunch of strangers or people somewhat detached from your project can help you grapple with a challenge. And the way it works is whoever's chairing it, so it'll be me, Joe, Rana, or Simone. We'll ask you to outline kind of who you are, what is it you're trying to do right now, what stage you're at with it, and what's the challenge you'd like us to focus on. So it's quite straightforward, but you do have to be semi-succinct at that. It doesn't need huge amounts of prep or planning. You just need to think, what is that niggling thing at the minute, or what am I struggling with? And we'll grapple with it. We'll then double check that we've understood what you're asking of us to a point, because part of this is actually helps you to see how well you clarify things, or how well, what information you give us is the best. We work on it to the best of our ability. You then get to put your feet up and have a chill out. You get 20 minutes rest, but you do stay and you do listen, and you act as like a fly on the wall. It's quite a weird thing if you haven't done it before, but it's a different way of troubleshooting challenges. So you tell us what your challenge is, we check we've understood what you said, and we say, switch off your camera, put your feet up and listen to this conversation and see what you make of it. And we will then tease out, we will tease out what we understand about this, our knowledge and experience of these sorts of things, and we will not jump to instant solutions, but we will start to share and think about what you've just said, and it will help reaffirm things about what you've already been thinking. It might go down things that you dismissed that you might want to revisit. It might come up with new options, new contacts, a light bulb moment, we hope, who knows, but it's a really useful, I wish, is Grace still here or is she gone? I think Grace is gone. She's gone. Not to worry. I was going to pick on her to say what does she make of it, but anyway, that's fine. Any thoughts from you, Jo? I mean, we've designed this when we've worked on these for years. Anything to add on why people might want to get involved? And you don't have to do this, and you don't have to get involved. And if you just want to come and be part of the and listen, that's fine. But I
think feedback from those that have been involved before as a mentee that have come along, they've left feeling better connected. They've met different people who can help with their venture. They've also maybe got some seed funding that's just allowed them to move an idea on. Like, for example, we had somebody who was setting up a podcast development business, but she just didn't have the equipment needed for that, which was obviously a huge barrier. So we funded some equipment, and that allowed her to just, get out there and start to do her business, and she's massively successful now. Other people have had seed funding towards insurance or accountancy support and various other things. So I think it is a good opportunity. It's a really great day to be involved in, whether you're kind of on the kind of sounding board side like I am, or whether you're actually getting involved and kind of articulating your business to a new group of people. I think
yeah, so it's just giving you a feel for that. We've incorporated it as part of the next time, and as I say, once we've grappled with your challenge for a while, we invite you back to check what you've made of what you've heard, what's been useful. It's one of those things where you take what you want and you leave what you don't want. It's not none of this is a personal sort of attack on anyone who's coming, but we will challenge, and we'll just discuss what we've heard and how we see it, and how these problems can come about, how we might have experienced them, and what we tried to do to address them, and any thoughts and tips and recommendations we might have for you. And then at that point we'd invite you back, see what you made of it, see if anything's shifted or has the potential to be trialed or move forward, and check anything else. And then we check, if you did have access to some cash, what you'd spend it on, and we'll get a feel for your needs around that. And then we wrap up the session with things that you're going to be taking away, and we let people know within a week whether or not they've been successful with that cash, and we usually pay it by back transfer, and and so on and so forth. We don't ask you to report back and give us huge reports or anything like that. It's the cash award given on trust, and there's a good chance we know where you live, that we're hoping that you're going to come back to some of our events anyway, and we're more interested in you and where you're going to evolve and how you're going to develop what you're doing. So your action is the results for us, as opposed to receipts. So for anyone wondering, what's the reporting, what do I have to do, what's the red tape, we've tried to make this as red tape free as possible. The only bit of red tape, and I'll gladly answer any questions, that's just to show you that we're all friendly. you know, we're a friendly bunch. And you know, some of these ladies and others may or may not get involved in what we do at the end of March, but it's just to give you that sense. And all as we need from you, if you're up for this, is to know you're interested. So whether you want to email me, put a message in the chat, say yes, I'm definitely up for this, or whatever, or after today, I'm going to send through an email like I normally do with some links to recordings and so on, but there'll be an email in particular that's about this, and there'll be a miniature form, nothing drastic, so no big application or anything, because we know you and we know what you're doing, but we'll just ask you to put a couple of paragraphs together on kind of, you know, where you're at with what you're doing and what the key challenges that you'd like the sounding board to think about and to work through with you. And based on what you tell us, we'll do our best to bring in useful brains to think about that. And we would just ask at this stage for those people that are interested, or even if you just want to observe, that you hold this in your diary for the 31st of March, and we'll, you know, sort it all out in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So any questions? Any thoughts?
No, I was going to ask a question, but you've answered it. It's okay. Just listen.
Fab. And as I say, not everyone has to, but we've certainly got space for at least 12 people potentially. I mean, I'm not one of those. Everyone's a winner, and I don't like to turn people away. So what, you know, we'll find a way to, if there's more than 12 people, to make that work. That's fine. And I think the key thing at the minute is with time, juggling, never knowing the minute, homeschooling, everything else. It's like, oh God, on top of everything else. But hopefully you've got that day or afternoon in your diary anyway. And it's a case of, you know, having a thing. If you're up for being involved, I just need to know you're up for being involved. We can work out these, you know, what you want to pitch and what you want to say and what you might spend some cash on over the coming weeks. And then I just need to know what brains and who I need to bring in to make it work, because we've not got a lot of time. The emails have gone out to our wider mentors who I think will be involved, and we've already got our chairs for the day, and we've already got a handful of people in our network up for being involved. So I'm not worried that it'll all work fine. I'm just, the only worry is if none of you...
I'm definitely up for being involved.
Pardon?
Yes, I'm definitely up for being involved in it. So I'll fill your form in as soon as I get it and send it back.
Great. Yeah, well, I've not even done the form yet. Well, I have. We've got them from days gone back. You know, we've got a standard form, but I want to simplify it, because you don't need a 2-page form. You need a 2-paragraph one. Cool. I'm going to
Kayla, we've got a couple of people there. Anne's interested. Mickey. Oh,
brilliant.
Yeah, Mickey's interested. Vicky is.
Excellent.
Morag, Jenny, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we've typically on any given group, we've got a good 10 to 15 people who tend to rock up, and so I'm confident we'll have, you know, 12 to 15 people who are interested in doing it. So we'll see where we get, and
hopefully in the real world.
Yes, and and that is the other thing, you know, I need to go and check what the budget is that we've got, because I'm going to go and tap up